If you have been looking for a guide on how to start a journal practice, then this video is for you. Now, I have been somebody who continues to journal and has journaled for many, many years. And no matter what type of journaling I'm doing, it has always transformed my life. I have better mental clarity when I have a journal practice. Journaling helps me stay on my goals. It helps me feel better. And ultimately, it's helped me cultivate a very deep, intimate relationship with myself. I've never learned more about myself than I have when I am journaling. Now, there's so many types of journaling out there, and a lot of you guys have asked me my journaling techniques. I have talked about it a few times in some of my videos, but I compiled a little guide for you to help you differentiate between which type of journal practice you should do. Now, I'm not gonna cover every single technique journal practice, but I think these ones are the main ones that will actually help you transform your life, and it's everything that I've always used in my life. But first, we need to talk about some rules before we start journaling. Because I think when it comes to journaling, a lot of people get confused about what to write, how long, when, which technique, this, that, and the third. Listen, when it comes to journaling, there should be no hard and fast rules. You don't need to be perfect. In fact, you being imperfect is going to make your journal practice so much better, and you are really going to actually transform your life. Another rule, which is not really a rule, but something that I think is so important that you remind yourself of before you start journaling is don't look too much to a journal practice to be a means to an end. AKA, enjoy the process. Don't look at this one thing like this is going to and should change your entire life. Like this is gonna be the answer, and if it's not, then I'm not doing it. And that's why a lot of people fall off a lot of the times, because they're trying something and they're like, it's not working, or like, it's not changing my life. But you wanna look at journaling like a tool in your toolbox. We have many tools to help us up-level our lives. We have journal practices, we have relationships and connections in our lives where we can actually have those deep connections with people. We go to therapy, we listen to music, we have different activities and hobbies and things, all to really allow us to continue to level up in our lives. And I think the more pressure we put on ourselves when it comes to doing certain practices, sometimes just strips the beauty that is within a journal practice. And one last thing that is so important, and depending on which type of journal practice we're gonna be talking about, this will be a little bit more prevalent, but sometimes you're going to have an inner critic come up when you are journaling. The part of you that judges, that's a perfectionist, that doesn't want you to even work on this part of you. That part might even be scared of what you will find or what you will come to in a journal practice, that just really wants to actually keep you safe. Sometimes it's good to acknowledge that you'll probably have some part of you, and I like to call it an inner critic, come up online right before you're about to journal. And you want to lovingly ask it to just take a seat. Take a step back right now and let me explore. Let me see what comes up. Let's just for a moment try and do something new. Let ourselves go for our desires when we are journaling. But you don't want to have this energy towards your inner critic like it's wrong or it's bad and it just needs to shut up, because realistically, your inner critic is really here to actually try and protect you. It just doesn't understand that some practices, even though they might feel uncomfortable, are not actually going to harm you. And so lovingly, just ask that part of you, just can you sit down just for a moment, in which you can come back online if you want afterwards. So let's talk about the different types of journaling. Like I said, there are many types. I'm going to address the ones that I think are very important and obviously the ones that I use the most, and I'm going to give you my explanation. But I would love to know in the comments what practice you guys like to use, if it's not even any of these or if it is, and how your journal practice has impacted your life. Like what outcomes, what changes have you seen? Again, this is not to say that we need to use journaling as like, it has to give me this outcome or nothing, but I would love to know how it's impacted your life. Okay. So let's talk about the first one, morning pages. Now, I didn't really realize that the practice that I was doing was essentially what most people call morning pages. So I am adopting that word morning pages to my journal practice, but they go hand in hand. And with this type of journal practice, you are simply letting out everything that is on your mind. This really helps if you are an anxious person or if you're stressed about something specifically in your life in this moment, if you're trying to change something, if you're trying to work through something. And this is also a very good emotional release practice. If you struggle with any chronic pain, if you're dealing with heartbreak, if you're really feeling lost in life, for you to just write out every feeling, emotion, everything, every thought, every story that is coming up. And I know it's gonna be negative, and that's okay because it's within you anyways. You might as well let it out. Let it out. This is the practice that you are going to do that with. So when to use this practice? I like to do this anytime that I am noticing that I am spiraling about something. I am triggered by something. I am stressed for some reason. I find that I'm overthinking a lot of things. That is when I bring my freaking pen to my paper and I say, let's do these pages, girl. Let's let it out. What's going on here? What do you feel? Clearly, you can't tell yourself a new story, or you can't put your focus on something else, because you know what? Like, there is a level of us just like, okay, I'm gonna not think about this thing and not spiral. And I'm really good at doing that the more times that I, work on myself. But there are still times in my life where I get triggered or something happens and I say, you know what? I can't ignore this right now, so let me put my pen to my paper and write out how I'm feeling. Also, I like to do this sometimes when I try any of the other types of journaling that I'll talk about, and I'm not really able to connect to what it is I'm doing. So like gratitude lists or affirmations or whatever, and I'm still kind of like in my head stressing about this one thing. I will stop the practice that I'm trying to do and I'll kind of come back to this morning page and just let everything out. I would suggest, if you are kind of afraid to write out your feelings, your emotions, your negative thoughts and feelings, give yourself the opportunity to write everything out, knowing that you can just rip up that piece of paper and throw it out. Because sometimes people are like, I don't want to write what I truly think about somebody. Or let's say you live with people and you're kind of scared that people will like see your journal. This is a journal practice where you want to be as messy as possible. And if, again, you worry about that, then literally just rip it up and throw it out. You don't need to reread these things. This is just releasing. Okay, the next type of journaling that I think is very, very huge, and this will make a very big impact on you and your awareness to yourself, which is self-reflection journaling, aka shadow work. We can even say AKA one more time and just put in the word inner child healing. I'm gonna quickly read a definition of shadow work, but I will also give you an example to kind of understand it more. So it says here that shadow work is working with your unconscious mind to uncover the parts of yourself that you repress and hide from yourself. This can include trauma or parts of your personality that you subconsciously consider undesirable. Anyone can do shadow work on their own. However, consider seeking a licensed therapist for treatment, especially if you struggle with severe trauma. Now, I think for the most part, a lot of us know consciously what we don't like about ourselves, what we don't desire, and what we want to change. But if you really want to uncover your shadows, your unconscious deep shadows, what can be very helpful is to reflect on your triggers. Let's say you're in high school, okay? And you have a friend group and there's this one girl that just annoys you. You are always annoyed by her, to the point where you're starting to do some self-reflecting, journaling, and you're becoming a new version of yourself, and you're really getting curious as to why it is this person just annoys you. And you're a pretty self-aware person, and you know this person hasn't really done anything wrong. And then you start to list, well, she's really loud. She seems to always be the center of attention. Seems like everyone is just attentive to her. All the guys like her. She gets all of the attention. And truthfully, I just feel drained when I'm around her. It's like the spotlight is always on her. Now, if you really wanted to know yourself even deeper, you can ask yourself, why am I not okay with the spotlight being on her? And if you were really truthful about it, you would probably come to find out it's because it's never been on you. And you deep down wish that spotlight was actually on you. You wish people would notice you. You wish people would be attentive to you. And you find you don't get that from your friends, and quite frankly, you never got it from your parents. In fact, in your childhood, at home, you weren't really allowed to express yourself. There was no room for that. Your parents didn't really like that. They wanted you to just be quiet and follow the rules. And so you were actually taught that being loud, being expressive, being magnetizing was something to demonize. And so you threw this part of you, this natural desire to want to be magnetizing, into your shadow, because you learned that that's not the thing that's going to keep you safe. That's going to keep you connected to mom or dad, or it's going to get you what you want in your life. And so when you grew up and you see people who are really magnetizing and the spotlight is on them, you kind of cringe. You're kind of annoyed to the point where you don't like that person. But if you're self-aware, you know there's gotta be a reason. There's gotta be a deeper reason as to why I don't like this girl. It's not like she's doing anything bad. I know she's a good person. Why am I so triggered? Why does she trigger me so much? Well, she has a part of her that's within your shadow. And it's gonna be up to you if you wanna integrate that back into your life. So essentially, your shadow self is holding your inner child's desires, the things that you were taught to suppress, to ignore, to reject, to deny, to be disgusted about. And so when you get triggered by people around you, when you don't like something about somebody, or you don't accept that about them, it's most likely because you've learned not to accept that about yourself, or you've demonized that trait, even though you know it's a good trait to have, but for some reason you're very uncomfortable around somebody who is more expressive. Now, this doesn't mean every person that you meet that you don't like or you don't agree with, it doesn't mean that you have to integrate that shadow. All you have to understand is, okay, I have learned that the way this person lives their life, or the way that they think, or the way that they act is not right in my eyes or in my parents' eyes, and they taught me that, or I've learned that in the social circle that I was around. And it's gonna be up to you whether you wanna deconstruct that. Do you want to integrate that shadow? Do you want to accept something about that person or that trait, or you wanna kind of bring that up within you and express that more? Or are you okay? There's obviously things in life where you just like look at someone in the way that they live and it's like, listen, I don't want to be that person. But if you get so triggered or disgusted by someone else in the way that they're living, most likely that part of you is really suppressed, or you've really learned to be disgusted by that. And I just think that, you know, again, it's not about whether you should integrate that part of you or not, but what kind of life is it for you to constantly be triggered by people to the point where you're super uncomfortable, you're thinking about them all the time. It's like you're getting so angry, you're disgusted, because at the end of the day, like, people are people. Like, we all have different wants and needs and values, and we have different traits, personality traits. We like different things. You don't need to be triggered by someone just because they live a life a certain way. Obviously, to a certain extent, there's people who do bad things in life. And what you will realize is when you start doing more shadow work and more reflecting, you will move from hating on what other people are doing. Let's say people who party all the time, right? This is another example I'll quickly give you. I had to grow up at a very young age, and so I was partying a little bit in my like late teens, early 20s, but I quickly had to stop because I had to take a lot of responsibility at a young age, whatever, like everyone does, but my story is my story. So I got to a point where I moved from being a party person to more into self-development and working on myself, and to the point where I would look at other people and I would judge them for partying. I would judge them for living their life. And I didn't realize I was really only judging them because partly I wasn't able to do partying anymore. And I thought that everyone should be like me and everyone should be on this journey, until I realized that everyone's on their own timeline. And also, no wonder I'm getting a little bit annoyed. It's really envy. It's really jealousy, because honestly, I can't party and I wish I had no responsibility. I wish my parents could just pay all my bills and I can just go party every weekend, but guess what? I can't. And so I had to really work through that. And then I was able to witness myself no longer judging people for living their life, because they're on their own journey. Now, am I perfect? Obviously, again, there's gonna be people. It's not to say that now I just support people who like party all the time. I look at them and I'm like, I just would choose not to live my life like that, but I don't get triggered by these people to the point where I'm talking crap or I'm gossiping or I'm like, you know, doing things that are not healthy for me and not healthy for them, to the point where I'm able to have healthy boundaries and communicate that with people who may be still partying that were once my friends, and to kind of separate those friendships if needed, or communicate what I will and will not do anymore, instead of, you know, yelling at them, getting mad at them for living their life. So when to do self-reflection, journaling, AKA shadow work, just kind of asking yourself those questions of, why am I triggered right now? Why do I feel like this about this person? What is it deep down? And again, this is not about blaming you and being like, oh my God, there's something within me that's like within them, whatever. It's just simply to reflect. Do this when you're triggered. Do this when you recognize you are not supporting your friend and deep down you're feeling jealous of them. Asking yourself, why? Why can't I support this person right now? what is it within me or in my life that I'm probably not happy with? It's just to look. Most likely, it's probably a shadow. But again, maybe it's just simply, you know what? This friend no longer just vibes with me in my life anymore. Also, of course, this can work when you're feeling really insecure about something. When you have an insecurity, it's literally because you've grown up in an environment where people didn't accept that part of you, or you heard somebody else get made fun of about their body or how they look. And so now you're insecure about yourself. Like really just reflecting and going deeper as to why I feel this way about myself or other people. Now, I have a really good self-reflection guide. This is called the Inner Child Discovery Journal Prompt Guide. So this is really all about getting deeper within your shadows and learning your inner child's desires and cultivating that deep relationship with yourself. So if you're interested in getting that guide, you can go to the link down in the description. I will have it. You can download it and it's digital, so you can type in all of your answers if you want, or you can literally just like use your journal and then look at it and write it, or you could print it if you want. I don't think anyone prints it though. Okay, the next one that's not as deep, and I like to just call it self-love journaling. So writing out all of the things that you like or you love about yourself, things that you also want to accept more about yourself. Now, I put self-love journaling right after shadow work for a reason, because sometimes when you do shadow work, you feel like crap about yourself sometimes. Like maybe you feel ashamed, or you feel like crap, you know, like you're bringing up shadows that are really deep. And I think it's really important that you have some sort of practice. You can do this after shadow work, or in general, of course, you could just do self-love journaling. Such a good practice for you to be kind and loving to yourself. You are an imperfect human being, and that is okay. It is okay that you get triggered sometimes. It's okay that you feel jealousy. It's okay that you aren't okay with somebody having the spotlight on them. It is okay. You don't need to beat yourself up for it. You are not a bad person. And also, if you just think about like any mistakes that you have made, or you're reflecting on your past, or the things you're not that happy with, it's okay that you've made mistakes. And I think this is a good practice for people, especially women who have really lived in the masculine energy role for a long time. Very independent, hyper independent, you know, like for survival mode, I was like that for so many years. And I just did not have this inner voice within me, this self-love, mothering, nurturing voice within me on the days that I did make a mistake. Or, you know, I was doing self-reflecting and I was like, wow, like I have all these shadows. So if you've struggled with having this motherly, lovingly voice inside of your head, then I would suggest doing this practice. Now, I'm not gonna be able to tell you what you need to write, but essentially anything that you haven't been accepting or liking about yourself, you're getting used to learning how to say kinder words to yourself about that thing. So if you're not loving your body, is there things that you can write out that you do like about your body? Is it every single inch of your body that you do not like? Well, do you like your skin? Do you like your legs? Do you like your hair? What are some things you can start focusing on? And I know a lot of people struggle with writing out like, I love my body, or I love this, that. You can say different words using bridging words like instead of love. Okay, maybe you're not obsessed with your body, but you like parts of your body. Use different words, like really feel into your words when you are journaling. This is why I think a lot of people struggle, because they try and use journal, people will tell them to journal like specific words or affirmations, but it's like, that's not unique to you. You need to create your own language, your own wording. What feels believable to you? What feels right to you? Go in that direction. Again, it does not have to be perfect. The next type of journaling, which definitely, absolutely changed my life, was gratitude journaling. And I know a lot of people talk about gratitude journaling, but I don't think there's people who understand why it's so important. Okay, so when did I use this? I used gratitude journaling when I was in the lowest point in my life, and everything around me was like out of my control. I lived with a parent who was struggling with addictions. I literally lived in a freaking trap house. I was broke. I was sick. I quite simply hated myself. I did not love myself at all. I was struggling in my relationships, in general, life. I started to realize that the more that I was focusing on all the shitty circumstances in my life, it wasn't helping me. If anything, they were spiraling more. They're creating more stress within my body. I was getting more sick. I was getting more depressed. I was getting more anxious. And so I started to learn that writing out things that I could be grateful for, focusing on the little things in my life that were either going good or there was parts of it that I could focus on was the way that I was able to continue to get out of the situation that I was in. Now, I made a whole video on how my life became my Pinterest board, so I will leave that video linked down below if you want to hear the full story. I literally have my old journals from like 2016. I literally read out some of those pages in that book, and I really go into depth. So if you resonate with anything I just said, I would highly suggest go watch that video. Essentially, if you're in the scarcity mindset right now, if your life is not going where it needs to go right now, I promise you, you focusing on all the ways in which everything is really crappy will not help you. You know this. You just continue to spiral. So having a practice where you are writing out, it doesn't have to be, again, this like 10 or 3 or 5, whatever. There's gonna be days where you have a whole list and days you kind of have, you don't have much. It's fine, whatever. Write out all of the things that you tend to focus on, all of the negative, and write what you are actually grateful for. So I'll give you a few examples. When I really wanted a new car, a newer car than I had, because it was like super high interest when I was younger, that was the only way I was able to get a car, and it was like breaking down. Instead of focusing on how crappy it was, I wrote out every single day how grateful I was that I was able to drive a car that got me from home to work to school. Every day that car got me there. And I was also able to listen to my podcast as I drove. Or when I was dealing with my chronic health issues. Instead of focusing on all of the crappy symptoms that I had a lot, okay? I wrote out that I was grateful that I was able to wake up out of my bed, open my eyes, stand up, and be able to still go to the gym and take care of myself. Still be able to eat food. Still be able to have enough energy to get up and go to work. Even though I was struggling with symptoms, even though I wasn't 100%. Or with money. Money was such a huge issue for me. But instead of focusing on all the bills and all the debt and how long it was gonna take me to get out of that, every single time I had a paycheck, every single time I made a tip at work, any little form of money that came to me, I was so grateful for that $10, my paycheck this month. And you know what I also used to do? I used to also write out that I was super, super grateful for the shifts that I was getting. I was always writing out how grateful I was for all of the money-making shifts that I was getting. I was a bartender and a server, and there was definitely certain shifts that you would make more money on. And so I was always grateful for all of the shifts that I got. So things like that. And I know it can be difficult, right? Because like, who wants to be grateful for the little tiny things that you have when you really want the big things? But I'm telling you, that is how you get the big things. I promise you, go watch that video if you need to, if you're really struggling, because you see the place that I'm in right now. You see how I am on social media. This wasn't given to me. And it was worked for by working on my mindset first. Now, the next one that I think is really my favorite, and it's super fun, is called self-concept journaling. And I literally just made that up. Like, I'm calling it that. I don't know, maybe we'll change it one day. But essentially, this is the visionary practice. This is you really moving from those old negative beliefs that you've been holding after you've done those shadow work prompts, after you've really reflected, after you've learned how to really be grateful for the things that you have now. This is where you're going to really welcome your desires into your life. This is not to say that you can't do this if you haven't been grateful or if you haven't worked through your shadows, but sometimes I find it's hard for people to focus on their future and act as if and write from a place of already having certain things in their life when they are really operating in scarcity, when they are really in lack, when they have a lot of low self-worth, a lot of shadows that they haven't worked through. And also, that is why I have another guide, and it's called Heal to Manifest. And again, I'll have it linked down below. The reason why I called it Heal to Manifest is because I really think it's super important for you to do this deep healing work. In a way, I call it healing work, but you know, the shadow work and like getting out of scarcity and working on your nervous system and not being so stressed, so that you can do more self-concept journaling. You can go for your desires. You can focus on your goals. Because if you try to welcome in this new version of you and you want to think new ways about men and relationships and money, and you're trying to positively think, what ends up happening usually with people is they don't believe it. They don't believe they can get that thing. They don't understand how they can get that thing. They are so focused on the negative that they can't actually focus on the positive. So I think this process is really just taking the path of least resistance by you doing that internal deep work first, and then doing more of that self-concept journaling. Whether you get the journal guide or not, like I'm just saying, that's the reason kind of why I I called it that and I positioned it in that way. But anyways, the self-concept journaling is really a practice where you are writing from a place of already having what it is that you want in your life. Essentially, you are writing as if you are that person right now that has that thing, the relationship, the money, the success, the happiness, whatever it is that you want in your life. Now with self-concept journaling, you could totally add in like your goals and what you're trying to call in your life. But again, it's really from this place of, okay, so let's say I really want to be a successful podcaster and I want to hit 1 million downloads on my podcast. You would be writing, I am a successful podcaster that has 1 million downloads and I help millions and millions of people transform their lives. And what I like to do is I like to go into like a paragraph or two and just continue to write about how that feels, what my life looks like when I am that podcaster and I'm creating change for people. You're really getting into that feeling state. You're believing it's possible for you. You're envisioning yourself being that person. Now, one quick reminder when it comes to self-concept journaling, you're writing from a place of I am this person. I am loved, I am wanted, I am deserving of having what it is that I want in my life. You might have beliefs come up when you're writing, no, I can't get this. No, but I can't. Or how is this gonna be? If you find that you're having those thoughts pop back up, it's good to go back to self-reflecting journaling by asking yourself the question of, why do I believe this to be true? Why do I believe that I can't get what I want? Is this even the full story? Who is to say that I can't make X amount of money? Why do I think that I can't become a successful podcaster or a YouTuber? There's always a story attached to that. So again, path of least resistance. If you find there's resistance coming up when you're writing, go back, ask yourself the question of, why do I think like this? Now, one thing to understand about self-concept journaling is you're literally trying to change your concept of yourself. So instead of looking at yourself like you are undesirable, you're not worthy, you can't make money, you're looking at yourself like somebody who is desirable, that does get what she wants or he wants in their life. Naturally, it's still going to feel uncomfortable and not normal for you to try and affirm to yourself in that way a new story. So yes, you will have some of those beliefs come up that you might have to kind of go back and ask yourself why, but then there's going to be times where you know that a limiting belief of where it came from. For me, sometimes when I'm writing out my desires and how I view myself, the future version of myself, there might be some little old stories pop up being like, oh, I don't know if you can get that, or like, you know, that seems a little extreme, or like, how are you gonna get that? I just lovingly put those stories to the side because they're simply just old manifestations of the old version of me, my old self-concept. And I don't need to listen to it. I don't have to subscribe to those beliefs. So there's gonna be a level of you being like, okay, I'm good, I'm not gonna listen to that. Obviously, we don't wanna suppress things. We need to go back and again, reflect, but just remind yourself when you're doing this self-concept journaling, when you're trying to look at yourself as a new version of you, it's not going to feel normal until it becomes normal because you've never viewed yourself like this before, but it doesn't mean that you can't and you shouldn't keep persisting in this story. And some things that I like to tell myself is, obviously, I get to have what I want in my life. Of course I can go for what I want. I didn't come here to not go for my desires. It actually logically doesn't make sense that I would be listening to these old stories. And these old stories are really just from my childhood, the things that I have been made fun of, or you know, I've picked up around my life where people were living in scarcity, and that's not a good way to live. That's not healthy. So why would I continue to subscribe to beliefs, stories, thoughts that aren't desirable, that aren't gonna get me where I want? Because this is the thing, and this is why I think self-concept journaling is very important, and I do this all the time, especially when I'm trying to up-level something in my life and go for something new that I've never done before and that I might not be confident within, is because you take action from this place. When you believe that you are going for what you want and that it's there and you can get it and you can have it, you're gonna get up and you're gonna take those actions that will lead you to becoming the podcaster, to becoming that healthy version of you, to putting yourself out there and finding healthy men so that you can date and you can eventually get married and you can have kids and you can have whatever you want in your life. When you have low self-worth, when you have shitty beliefs about yourself and life, do you really take good action in your life? No, you don't. You continue to spiral. You continue to focus on the things that you can't change. You continue to complain. You continue to attract people who are in that same vibration, which creates more of that thing. So yeah, just wanted to say, Sometimes it's not gonna feel that comfortable, but that doesn't mean that you can't persist. Another thing that's helpful for me sometimes when I'm doing self-concept journaling is, again, I'm feeling into the energy of my words, right? So if I'm writing, let's say, I'm a successful podcaster with 1 million downloads, I'm gonna check with myself and feel, does the 1 million downloads feel like it's real to me? And again, this is not about playing small here, but how does this feel? Okay, well, you know what? If I write 1 million downloads right now, I start spiraling. I start thinking about, how is that gonna be possible? There's not enough people who ever listen to my podcast, whatever. If I catch myself spiraling about that, then what I like to use is a bridging affirmation. So maybe it's not 1 million downloads, maybe it's 500K. Maybe it's 200K, maybe it's 1,000, whatever it is. By the way, we have passed 500,000 downloads on my podcast. I have a podcast, if you guys didn't know, the Glow of Secrets podcast, link down below. Sorry, just had to plug that. But really, again, checking in with yourself and making this practice your own. So when should you do self-concept journaling? Well, I already kind of said after you do your shadow work, after you do your gratitude. And I don't mean every single morning you'd be doing self-love, gratitude, shadow work. I mean a period of time, right? It could be taking you a few weeks to do shadow work or a few weeks to do the gratitude. For me, when I was really in a low place, honestly, gratitude was enough for me. I didn't need to do self-concept journaling because gratitude allowed me to really take action as well. And then I ended up creating more abundance and more manifestations coming into my life anyway, so I didn't really need that. These are all little ways in which that you can become a new version of you and be a better person. You don't need to have all of these things in place. So again, coming back to being a perfectionist, you don't have to do everything all at once. See what works for you. And I think the work that I have done years and years and years of this can be quite easy for me to do because I know when I have limiting beliefs come up, I know that they're old and I can easily push them away. I've also been able to show myself that there's so many possibilities in life that I'm really able to believe that I can go for what I want. And I've also worked on my self-worth and I know I'm deserving of what I want because I understand that my insecurities were all based out of things that I have grown up around or people have taught me or I thought that I had to be insecure about and I did not need to. So I really say try them all. Either way, whatever one that you do, I want you to take one actionable step after you have done this practice. Because this is the thing, if we want to become the best version of ourselves, that is going to require us to take certain action. And this is why I love doing journal practices in the morning. As soon as I wake up, I don't go on my phone. I'll just go sit here. I'll do some self-concept. I'll do morning pages if I need to, if I'm stressed about something, whatever. And it always helps me be able to get up and take action towards my manifestations or AKA my goals. When I'm excited about life, when I'm going through this version of me that I can see myself being, when I let out all the stress, when I remind myself that I'm lovable, that I am deserving of everything in my life, that I accept myself, that I don't have to be perfect, it is so much easier for me to get up and go do my work or go get on the podcast or go take action and go to the gym or have a hot girl walk and listen to a podcast instead of spiraling. It is so much easier, and bringing it back to path of least resistance, I like to do things in my life that allow me to easily flow through my day, to easily take that action. And I really think journaling can help you do that. Now, I get a lot of questions about certain manifestation techniques and I don't even know, scripting out a certain amount of lines or 444 method or 333 or whatever the frick. And I don't know too much about that. All I know is I think the things that I've talked about are the things that actually help you heal and become a new version of you for good. I think there's certain techniques that are out there that can help you in the short term try and manifest things very quickly or get quick results, but then you fall back into your old way because you didn't actually do that deep work. And essentially, you just fall back into your old self-concept, the version of you that doesn't get what they want, the version of you that still subconsciously believes that she's not worthy of whatever it is that she wants in her life. And so I just think it's much smarter to work on those deep-rooted beliefs and do that work so that you can sustain things and actually go for what you want in your life. And that is what I have done, and I will back that until the end of day. So please stop trying to find a quick fix to manifesting your dream life. Do the work. It can be hard sometimes, but I promise you, it will yield you so many results. You will be blown away. I am still to this day blown away at how insanely my life has changed since I started a journal practice. Remember to check in with yourself, trust that you know your answers to you journaling, or when should I do this, or what type of journal practice should I do. Trust yourself, try things out. You don't have to be perfect. When should you do this? How long of a practice you should do depends on your lifestyle. You can do it in the morning, noon, night. You can do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It just depends. Just do something. All I say is try and be consistent so that you can show yourself that you are feeling better, that your mind is changing, that you see yourself in a more loving, beautiful way. And again, if you're interested in my inner child discovery journal prompt guides, so of course they have lots of prompts for you if you really struggle with journaling, cultivating that relationship within yourself, then I have that guide along with the Heal to Manifest guide. Both will be linked down below. I also have one-on-one coaching, so if you're interested in working with me privately, link will be down below. Don't forget, I have that podcast so you can have more free content to really strengthen your mental diet and get you where you need to be. And let me know in the comments, like I already mentioned, what your practice is, how that's impacted your life, but also if you want a part 2. I was also thinking I could do a video on how to set goals and action plans, because I know you guys ask that a lot and I have many things that I do. And listen, I don't live in a reality where all I do is sit here and journal and manifest and like be in this feminine flow and like things come to me. I have to take action. I have to tap into my masculine energy and take that action. So if you want that video, let me know. And either way, I will see you in the next one. Bye.